Well, hello, and we are back again. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. And we're back again with another episode of Learning Strategies, the live stream where we discuss learning strategies. And we discuss learning strategies with no other than Kate Benson, the International Director for Education. Hi, Jane. Good to see you. And the International Director for Education of the Society for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, also known as NLP. And the topic for today is something called, I can't even pronounce it, Dilts Logical Levels. I dislike it. Kate likes it a bit, I think, but at least she uses it. Nevertheless, I've been recently hired to work with the Dilts Logical Levels. So we're going to discuss it, what it is, and what I don't like about it, and how Kate is using it, especially in terms of learning strategies. But we can't do it without Kate herself, of course. So here she is. Hi, Kate.
Hello, Joost. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, perfectly perfect.
Good. Sorry, I just got to move the light in my eyes.
Sorry?
I said, sorry, there was a light shining in my eyes, so I was just moving out the way. I wasn't lurching at you through the screen.
And are you ready for the big battle?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Even though I completely forgot what we were doing until you told me.
Yes.
I was thinking, I know we decided what we were doing next week, and I just could not remember. So that's interesting that I could just not remember it. Might utilize that when we're discussing it.
Yes, no, I can understand that. I would also forget everything about the logical levels if I could.
Yes, well, we know your likes and dislikes, Joost.
Yes,
you know.
I'm always very black and white.
You are very clear. There's no shades of grey about you, is there?
No, I detest grey. Grey is evil. So, sorry?
So I'm just laughing. So, okay. So do you want to say everything you detest? I was just wondering, would you like to say everything you detest about logical levels first to get that out of the way, and then we can discuss it?
No, I think
or do you want to do what we normally do, which is where you interject and disabuse everybody of everything that I'm saying? Which way around would you like it, Joost?
The latter, because
of course
it would be much nicer to have you explain logical levels first. And then discuss, because otherwise people have no clue what we're talking about.
I know, there is that. Yeah, there is that. So I get 5 minutes on the ground, do I, to explain a little bit about logical levels.
Right.
Okay, so this is a model, and it's a model which is absolutely fine with me because I'm quite happy with models. The great thing about models is that they're useful, but not true.
Right.
And that's a really important distinction to make here. So any model, if it's useful to us in some way, can be helpful, then I'm all in favor, because as people will know, I'm very pragmatic in my approach to what works and what doesn't work. So Dilts came up with this idea of logical levels, which really says that issues, if you like, problems and solutions exist at a number of different levels. You could call them levels of consciousness or whatever, but different levels. The problem that I have with it is that at some point, Robert Dilts, who is a perfectly nice guy, also a very small chunker, he likes things in very small pieces, not big chunks. He likes to chunk things down. Started to call them neurological levels. And the implication was that somehow these logical levels correlated or connected in some way to the actual brain. Now, I don't personally buy into that at all. It doesn't mean that I can't use the idea. Go on, Joost.
Huh? No, that's very simple. It's just a neuroscientific fact that these are not levels, neurological levels. And that's also why he stopped using the name. But before he called them neurological levels, he claimed it were, what's the anthropologist? Gregory Bateson's logical levels. That's where the name comes from.
Okay, right. Well, that sort of stuff. I don't know that stuff. You fill in all those gaps, Joost.
That is even also complete bullshit, because it has nothing to do with Gregory Bateson.
Well, no, okay.
I also dispute that it is a model, but continue explaining it.
All right, a way of thinking about something, a way of looking at it. I don't really care what you call it. All I'm interested in is that this is just like I use a lot of different models in my work and in teaching excellence. And those people who are coming on Teach Excellence will discover, you know, I use Cobb's learning cycles model. I use Bloom's taxonomy, all of which are models, none of which are true, but they just help us to, if you like, organize our thoughts about something. And and what logical levels does for me is it enables us to organize. Whoops, what's that?
I thought
wait, thank you.
You were talking about teaching excellence, so I thought.
Yes, we're doing teaching. Sorry, I just had to put my glasses back on because I couldn't see it. Yeah. So yes, we're doing teaching excellence in November and in the UK, Isle of Wight. And also, big announcement, not made this announcement anywhere yet. I'm about to put it out on Facebook. For all of those people who've already done teaching excellence, we are running a teaching excellence trainers program, and I'm about to start to release my work to other very, very select numbers of students, of my students, who may want to teach my work. So that's very exciting and coming up soon. So I've forgotten what I was saying now. Neuro-logical levels. So if oh yeah, I was going to make Jane's mentioning Kathleen's use of the meta model, which is actually I noticed you were talking about that the other day, Jane, on Facebook, and yeah, Kathleen Laval uses Dilts' logical levels to connect the different what am I talking about? The different meta questions that we can ask. And it helps us to sort out those levels. Kathleen teaches it absolutely brilliantly, and I highly recommend that people get the opportunity to learn Kathleen's application of the meta model, because she teaches it brilliantly, utilizing some of the logical levels things too. So thanks for that, Jane. So let's have a look at what the logical levels are. Let's just put the list up, Jos, not the triangle one, just the basic list first.
Yes.
So what Dilts said is that you can look at issues, problems, solutions, if you like, at different levels of consciousness or whatever. Now, this is a bit confusing because this list goes from top to bottom, and then the next one it goes the other way around. But again, it's just a model. So if we think about how we have a problem, this is how I use it. I'm not going to speak.
Can I ask, before you begin, can I ask one question? Because I'm just thinking about the model stuff. What does it model? You say it is a model. What does it model?
Well, all right, let's call it a structure.
Okay, structure.
Perfectly fine. Let's call it a structure, because it's anybody who's worked with me in education knows the idea of scaffolding. So the idea is when we scaffold something, you know, if I ask you, you know, if Jolks asks one of his wonderfully philosophical questions, the chances are is it's not scaffolded in any way, in that your brain has to range round all sorts of possibilities in order to make any sense of it. But in education,
scaffolds.
Pardon?
Philosophers hate scaffolds.
Yeah, I know they hate scaffolding. But in education,
asking questions about, you ask a question, but you ask a question about the scaffold at the same time. Are you using the right scaffold?
Yeah, that would make sense. That's what philosophers do. They waste their time doing stuff like that, in my opinion. But, you know, that's up to you, Jost. So what we might do is, if somebody isn't accessing learning with the big question, or they're unable to even start to solve a problem because the question is too big, then we will scaffold it. So and what that means is we will put props in the way that help people to get there. And this, I think, is probably a good use. I think I'm going to change my use of model to scaffold in relation to logical levels, because it helps us to get somewhere. It's a ladder, if you like, that helps us to get somewhere. And I'll give you another example of that. Is if, for example, we want to teach somebody to cook chips, French fries, right? If we take them in the kitchen and it's all set out and there's everything in the kitchen for them, and we say, okay, we're going to cook French fries, we're going to cook chips. What do you need to use? And there are all these pans and various things. it's sometimes that, but it's too big a question. If people haven't been in a kitchen, they don't know what anything is. It's too hard. So we can scaffold it, say, well, are we going to use this sort of pan or this sort of pan? And that scaffolds the issue into an either or question, which makes it simpler. So in terms of logical levels, we can scaffold our problems. And I think this is quite a good fun thing to do, because what I notice is that certain types of people, and this might relate to, I don't know if it relates to the neurogram or not, it's an interesting question, I guess, but certain types of people and sometimes certain professions favor a particular type of solution, which means that they don't offer the person they're trying to help a range of solutions. They only offer the one that's they're comfortable with, rather than looking at the options. So if we take something like, let's say we've got a child who isn't reading, or a child who is reading, let's do it positively. So somebody, let's look at it, we read as people. Right. And we could say, so why is that? Why do we read? Well, first of all, at an environmental level, we read because we've got books.
Right.
So if we live in a world where there are no books and there's no script and there's no internet and there's no handouts, then we won't read because we have no material. It's an environmental issue.
Right. So we call them antecedents in behavioral analysis.
Yeah.
And you need them, otherwise you can't do the behaviors.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't do it if it haven't got the resources there. So if we look around, if we've got an issue where children, for example, are not reading, then the very simple question to ask is, have they got stuff to read? Exactly. And we know that that's often a big issue for children. If they live in houses which don't have access to books, and they're in families that don't read or don't have reading matter, then they won't read. Yes. You know, the Victorians recognized this because they set up libraries. They solved that problem by making, in the UK, I don't know if they did it in other places, free. They put books in the environment so people could go and read.
I spent lots of time in the Dutch library of our local municipality.
Yeah, absolutely. They were absolutely key to people. My brother, who was a very, very fast reader, he had to have special dispensation because as children, you were only allowed 3 tickets and 3 books. And he would ride in the morning. He would go and get his 3 books in the morning and he would have read them by lunchtime. Right. So they had to give him a special dispensation so he could have 6 tickets, because otherwise he had to go back at lunchtime and get 3 more.
Yeah,
but they were an enormous resource. And sadly, it's, one of the reasons I think that children are not reading so much now is because they haven't got that access to not just books, but to a whole range of reading materials. So on a very basic level.
Let me just add to that, because I was shocked this Saturday. We went having dinner party with friends, and their son also joined us, and he is 13 now. And I said, so you should be reading this. And he said, reading? I don't read. And I know that it's not an environmental issue, because I know.
No. Well, let's have a look where it is then, because that's a good example of 13. Now, let's find out. Let's use logical levels to see if we can find out about where where the issue is for your nephew. So let's we have a situation where there are books around. So the next thing is whether or not the person does the behavior.
Exactly.
So do they read? Now, in your young man's case, he went like, I don't read.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't. So he used that word don't. Now, do and don't is indicative of whether or not somebody engages in that activity. Jane's saying belief. No, I don't think it is, Jane. Just hold on there, because actually you may find that you want to go somewhere else with it. Might be, might not be. So the next thing is when somebody uses a word like do or don't, it's an activity word.
Yeah.
It's and so it implies that I don't do it, or I do that. I engage in that activity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a behavior. Is the person, so it's not that they're saying, for example, that he can't read.
No,
he's saying he doesn't read.
He will admit that he can read, he just doesn't do it.
Yeah, he doesn't do it. So that's a behavioral thing. So that's often around motivation. It may well be about motivation, because it's like, why are they not engaging in that activity? What stops?
Well, I think because he did not get enough positive consequences when he did read. Of course, he has read some stuff, but he did not get any positive consequences.
Well, possibly, but it could also be, and yeah, it could be about positive consequences, which again is about, you don't, if he hasn't got enough positive consequences, then it's not going to provide enough motivation for him to actually do it. When I was little, I was exactly the opposite of my brother. My brother read, he started to read at about 4 and he never stopped. Right. And he just went on and on and on. And he read everything, the cereal packets, the signs, everything. I went to school. I didn't read before I went to school. I went to school at 4.5, and I learned to read in the next 18 months or so, like a normal child, between 4.5 and 6 in the UK. And I remember going around really quite enjoying doing the alphabet things. You have those things around the walls, A, B, A for apple, B for. And I remember going around pointing in those and saying the letters and singing the song and liking doing all of that. And then I remember writing the letters, and I remember the reading books, the reading scheme. And I got through the reading scheme, Janet and John, or whatever it was called. And as far as I was concerned, I had now mastered this skill. I had to go to school to learn to read. I'd learned to read, so I didn't need to do it anymore. So for me, I had no reason to, because I couldn't see the point.
This child has the exact same brain type as you. So I'm going to check it.
That'd be quite interesting.
He has an hedonist or Epicurean brain type. So I'm going to check it next time I see him, whether he also thinks, I can read, so why should I read
now?
Anymore?
Yeah, I did it. So there had to be something else in it for me. So for me, what was the motivation? And actually, I started to read when we went to live in Turkey when I was about 11. So, right. I mean, I could read. I read what I had to read, but I didn't read for pleasure or for knowledge or information till I went. And we didn't have any TV. And there was only the BBC World Service, which had about half an hour's children's programmes on a day. And the rest of it was quite dull. And I was being home educated by my mother, which meant actually she just shoved a few books in front of me and went to drink coffee with her friends. And upstairs in the flat, there was a girl who was at boarding school, and she had all of the Enid Blyton books about being in boarding school.
Okay.
And I just worked my way through these books because I had nothing else to do. And B, I was desperate to escape what was a very boring situation. So for me, it was dull. Right. And so I escaped into this world of private schools in the UK, which I'd have probably hated if I'd actually been there. But I thought they were terribly hijinks and fun. So,
but of course, in his case, he has lots of other behaviors that do get positive consequences. Playing video games, and his dad is an avid role-playing gamer, and they have their own role-playing game shop and stuff like that. So he has plenty of other things to do that keep him entertained.
So until there is a real motivation for him to engage in that activity, he probably won't. So often it's about, with me, very simple things. If you've got a child like that, often I will just simply change the child's reading scheme. Mm-hmm. And have a conversation about what they're interested in, and find a reading scheme that's got something in it for them. Like your nephew is too old for that. He's not doing reading schemes. But you need to, what will happen, he's a bright boy. He's got interesting people around him. He will discover something that motivates him. So my friend's little boy was the same. He could read. He didn't bother until, and I've probably told this story before, his dad bought him some ducks, and he needed to know about, he was quite entrepreneurial, needed to know two things. One was how to look after the ducks and breed ducks, and also how much he could sell them for.
Exactly. Yeah.
But he started to read The Farmer's Guardian. Well, The Farmer's Guardian in England it's like the dullest newspaper ever. It's a big broadsheet, and it's tiny, tiny black and white print, and there's no pictures in it, and it's not. But he used to spread it out on the floor and lie there with his bottom in the air, poring over anything to do with ducks.
Right.
But he found the thing that made it interesting for him to read. So he had a reason for reading. So behavior requires a reason.
Positive consequences for reading the Farmer's Guardian.
Yeah, because he had a reason.
Right.
So he had the positive consequence, gave him a reason for doing it. Exactly. So when somebody isn't engaging in a behavior, you need to look at the reason why they are and aren't doing it.
Yes, the reasons are the lack of positive consequences. Does logical levels miss positive consequences? Should we add to it?
Well, I think that because your ABC model brings most things down to sort of behaviors, or the ABC model. I think we can overlay one on top of the other. I don't think we have to say it's either or. We don't have to make them both work exactly the same. We can acknowledge two models as having use.
It wasn't a model. It was a structure, a scaffold. The logical level.
A scaffold. Yes, a scaffold.
The ABC model, of course, is a model because this models human behavior and the instrumental learning of our brain.
Yeah. So Jane is saying here, quite interesting, that it's a belief that it's boring. Well, that's true, but actually the way when we're dealing, it is most of these, one of my problems, and it's a good question that Jane's asked here, because one of my problems with logical levels is that most of these things relate to beliefs. So a behavior can have a reason behind it, which is a belief. Capability can be about belief. Beliefs and values can be about beliefs. And identity is definitely about beliefs. And spiritual world is about beliefs. So in one sense, you could just say it's all environment or beliefs on one level. But that doesn't necessarily help us as where to go as coaches or teachers in finding the solution.
Because I believe there are no beliefs.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Fine.
They're basically brain processes, and we call these brain processes beliefs.
Yeah, okay.
But that is just mistaking the surface structure for the deep structure.
Okay, shall we carry on with the logical levels then? You can argue that out with Jane in another day. I'm not getting involved in that one.
Okay, I thought it was quite interesting that I agree with you that beliefs, values, identity, and spirituality are all about beliefs. And if beliefs don't exist, then we have 50% of logical levels doesn't exist.
Well, yes, from an existential point of view, that's probably true. But I'm talking about whether or not it's practical. I'm talking about how it helps us to help somebody. So we can say I could agree with you or not, and it wouldn't really make any difference to whether or not this is a useful scaffold for us to figure out how to help people. So the next level is about capabilities. It's where somebody says, oh, I can, or I can't do it. So the question is, can they read? So, or not? So this then becomes a capability issue, which becomes a skilling issue. So teachers are extremely good. And this is how I came to use this model in the first place. Teachers are extremely good at identifying scaffold. The logical levels. I'm just going to call them logical levels for now. Teachers are extremely good. Teachers are extremely good at identifying or working at this level. That's where they're trained to. So they work at capability level. So there is an assumption with teachers, for example, that if somebody doesn't do something for whatever reason, it's because they can't.
Right.
So they go into teach mode. But of course, what we've already seen is that there's no point in teaching somebody to read if they have nothing to read. And there's no point in teaching somebody to read unless they're motivated or have positive consequences from the activity.
Or they can already read.
Pardon?
Or they can already read. So if
there's going to be a proportion of people who can't, so when they first, before you've been exposed to it, you can't already read. So teaching people to read is an important thing to do, but not if they already can read and there's another reason for them not doing that.
Exactly. But I think that a lot of teachers would then still try to teach them to read, even though they can already read.
Yes, that's true. And so then they're actually, flogging a dead horse, literally, because they're doing something. But also sometimes there's an interesting link here, because sometimes somebody isn't reading or isn't learning to read. That is, they're not engaging in the behavior of learning because there's a positive consequence to not doing.
Right.
So an example of this was I went into a trade school, a college, in a hairdressing class, and the girl was sitting there, and she had an adult sitting next to her, a teaching assistant sitting next to her. So I asked the teacher, why does this girl have a teaching assistant with her? And she says, oh, well, she can't read. So we've made reasonable adjustment for her. So she has a reader. Excellent. To read for her.
Yeah.
So why on earth would she bother when some woman or man is going to sit next to her and do this for her, apparently, as far as she's concerned, for the rest of her life?
Yeah.
And I just stood there, absolutely aghast, and said, why on earth don't you teach this girl to read?
Exactly.
You know, teach her to, and they were like, oh, well, she spent all this time in school. I said, it's a mastery skill. Reading is not a high level functioning skill. We've said this before. It's a simple mastery skill. Understanding, comprehending, all sorts of other things become more complex, but the actual act of reading is a relatively simple thing. We can teach people with severe and profound learning difficulties to do it. So I'm sure a girl who's on a hairdressing course can learn to read.
Yes.
So sometimes, but she's become highly motivated because she's got lots of lovely positive consequences for not doing that.
Exactly. Well, we have...
Yo's gone. He's disappeared on me. Where'd you go, Yos? Oh, how interesting. It's all popping about. Are you there, Yos? I'll carry on, shall I? Shall I carry on anyway? So Yos comes back in. So that's capabilities. Then we get to the area of beliefs and values. It says this is about whether or not reading is a good thing to do. And as we were saying before, the little boy with the ducks didn't really think it was a good thing to do until he found another reason to read. And so I think that's another area we can look at. Do people think it's worth it? Is it worth them putting themselves out to do it? Is it a good thing to do generally, or am I better off playing a video game? And I think your nephew is an example of this, in terms of it may well be that it's not worth it to him. There's lots of other things that are more valuable for him to do. So it doesn't have any intrinsic value. I don't know what you're seeing on the screen, but I'm popping up and down here like a yo-yo. So we'll just carry on and see what happens. And in a minute, if Joseph isn't back, I shall go and get my phone and text him. So that's the area of beliefs and values. So the next area that we need to think about is whether or not it's identity again, which is disappeared again. Hello, what's happening?
What's happening? Can you see me and hear me again?
I can hear you. I carried on because I didn't know if we were still broadcasting.
No, we had lots of technical issues.
Okay.
You went through it like a superstar. Okay,
well, I just carried on. So I didn't know if you were still there or not. I just thought, well, I'll talk to myself if needs be.
Yeah, I am there, but I was somehow locked out, so I had to reset everything.
Okay, so we've been talking about the beliefs and values, and I was just saying that perhaps your nephew isn't engaging in reading because it's just not worth it to him. It's not good enough. It's not valuable enough.
Yes.
So there isn't a payoff that's big enough, or he just doesn't think it's a good thing to do.
Exactly.
So then we need to tackle that in the area of beliefs and values. And I have a lovely story about this, which is one of my favorite stories, which is about a woman who came on a course when I was teaching. And I, as you know, I use the spelling strategy really to explain how strategies work, because it's such a simple strategy.
We discussed it last week.
Yes, we did. That's right. But this woman came along and she said, it was a great one. When I ask people this in the room, my sort through is this. I have this in my head, which I'm sorting through, because I'm looking for the person. If I want to demo, I want somebody who's at capability. Right. I want somebody who's saying, I can't spell. So I'm listening to their language, and we'll look at how we listen for that in a minute. So I'm listening for that because I want to identify for demo purposes somebody who's at that level. But this lady wasn't, because she went. I said, who? I said, so you? I said, who can't spell? And she put her hand up initially, and I said, oh, so you can't spell? And she said, well, I can spell, but I just don't do it like everybody else.
Right. It's like me. They can't spell. Like
she didn't conform. She didn't want to and as far as she was concerned, when I had a conversation with her, her belief about herself was that she was a very creative person. And if she conformed to spelling words in exactly the same way as everybody else did it, that would mean she wasn't creative. Exactly. That would challenge her belief about her creativity. So that's
in my second book called Brain Training, the editors had the publisher put in a line that said, we are not responsible for the weird words that Joost uses. They're not correct, the Dutch, and we pointed it out, but he demanded that it was still put into place, or something like that.
Well, my lovely editor Jane, she didn't do things like that, but she would write to me and say, "Did you really mean it in that way, or is it just a spelling mistake?"
Right.
But she was smart enough to know that sometimes I might have meant it like that. Sometimes I might have just made a mistake. So this woman didn't have this belief about spelling being a good thing, and also it moved up to that identity level. Is that if she was going to become a good speller, it would challenge her identity as a creative person. Right. So my intervention for this woman who didn't spell very well was not initially at a capability level, but at an identity level. I needed to find a way to express to her, so she could express to herself, a way of being both creative and a good speller, right, and how the good spelling would support her creativity.
For instance, by doing a swish technique on her self-image, where she saw that she was very creative in one way and spelling correctly at the same time.
I could have done a swish pattern on her, but, you know, I use things much more conversationally than you do. So what I did was I asked her, and I did it through a series of meta-model questions. And I said to her, would you like more people to have access to you and enjoy your creativity?
Right.
And she said, oh, yes, she would love that. She would love her work to be more out in the world. So I said, well, if people could access your creativity better by making this one small compromise of spelling things in the same way, it will mean that lots and lots more people can appreciate your creativity. And she went, oh, yeah, that works.
Right.
So what I did was it was more of a visual squash, really. I brought the two things together and did that with them. And she went, oh, okay. So, but the interesting thing about it was that if I could have taught her to spell, I could have used the spelling strategy with her, but that would have not helped her at that point, because the problem, we hadn't got to that point in the problem. We had to sort something else out first. And Definitely. That for me is the benefit of logical levels.
Oh, no. Why would you use logical levels for that? So if you do a lot of coaching, as I do, then very rare, but something like a 1 in 100, you can see that the basic NLP techniques to feel good, spinning feelings, black and white rewinding stuff, sexy voice technique to stop worrying, and that they actually do the technique, the steps. They take the steps in the right way, but it doesn't provide them with the result that most other people get. And you can see them fail in every instance. So sometimes people have difficulties with their feelings, but then the visualizations go great. But in a very rare case, a 1 in 100, everything fails. And for me, that's a big sign that there's something in their self-image that doesn't allow them to feel good. And then whenever I'm also going to use meta-model questions, whenever I check it, then we discover that is indeed the case. And then we use a swish technique, swish pattern to improve the self-image and see that they can feel good and still be safe. That's most of the issues, is that they feel that if they are not feeling, if they're not feeling bad, that they would be in danger. And then suddenly the techniques work perfectly fine. And so I think that is a very important part, but that's why we work with self-image. Why would I need the logical level for that?
Well, because, well, you see, the thing is about you, Joost, is you're a bit, you once you have a pattern, once you have you're quite rigid, really, I suppose. And once you have something that works, you just keep doing that, right? So you have your little model, your structure,
rigidity
for the way you work, and that's fine. But I tend to work with in much more conversation than you. I do less coaching than you, and your model works fantastically well when you're coaching. But I'm often much more on the fly than you are.
Yeah, we call it exploratory work.
Yes, and often and much more
exploitation. I know, because your brain wants to explore stuff and my brain wants to exploit stuff. Well, I perfectly understand why. I'm just trying.
Well, then don't ask me why I would want to do it differently. You know the answer to that, then. So
I don't mind.
Can I just finish?
I'm in favor for exploration. There's nothing wrong with it. And you can use logical levels if you want, but I'm trying to see why people think that it adds something. So I don't think it's a model. I think it's basically 6 categories. I already doubt whether it's smart to think in terms of categories in the first place. But we have basically 6 pointers or 6 scaffolds that are reminders of what you should do when you work with people.
Well, you could say that, and then that's fine if you're already an NLP master trainer or a practitioner or a master practitioner. But actually what this also enables you to do is to teach people to make interventions who haven't got that background in training as well. So from that point of view,
it's a great hypnotic tool. I think Dilts is brilliant in developing logical levels, because my theory is that he saw Richard Bandler and John Grinder hypnotize psychotherapists who did not want to use hypnosis into doing hypnosis by coming up with techniques. So 6-step reframing and change personal history are basically tricks to trick people into going to a trance and doing hypnosis. And I think that Dilts just wanted to do something like it. And then he came up with the Logical Levels hypnosis show to get people to become spiritual. We haven't talked about the spiritual level yet, but and people were just completely hypnotized by it, going, "Wow, this is great! Yes, everything is one. We need purpose and stuff like that." And I think that's brilliant work done by Dilts. I just don't think that it is very brilliant by the people who are being hypnotized if they are being hypnotized and thinking this is really how it really is.
I agree with that. I agree with you. As I said, I don't think this is really how it really is at all. I just think it's a useful structure to be able to make, because I'm going to show people how they can easily, it gives access to people easily to where they want to make an intervention. Right. And that's all it is for me. It's a roadmap for where to start. And I think it's a useful roadmap. You have a different roadmap, but this is a roadmap that I think is quite useful because you can do it very casually, very conversationally. Now, let's just finish off the list, because we've got the whole spirituality thing, which again is just belief. What you believe about the world is just a really big belief, so just, and as we know from our previous discussions, they're just internal behaviors. So it's no big deal, but sometimes we do believe that, but on a very big level, if you like, a spiritual reading, helps the world. Reading is useful, and we can debate about this, but actually, if you look at it from the other point of view, it can be when people believe that reading isn't a good thing, then we get into very, very serious issues as a race, as a human race. When people are burning books because they're bad.
Exactly. Then I will hold on to the probability statement that the more people read, the less likely they are to become a fascist.
Yeah, absolutely. Or any other sort of group of people who want to control other people and impose their view on the world. So reading, my thing is education is freedom, and reading is part of education, so therefore reading is freedom. So that's my belief in terms of the big picture. Why I believe that reading is good for the world is it's about freedom. It's about freedom of expression and freedom of choice and freedom to think.
Right.
So those are the
Jane has a remark, useful for perceptual positions and gathering learnings within positions, for example. That is why we should use the logical levels.
Well, whatever it works, whatever people find useful for. I mean, I use it in this very specific way. It doesn't go beyond this. I'm not saying that this is the be all and end all. Like, this is a particular. It's not really about what I think is useful, good or bad about logical levels. I have a particular application that I find this particular structure useful for. Other people will use it in different ways. So for me, it's just, and I have to just at this point pay tribute to Kay Cook, because it was really Kay and conversations with Kay that led me to using this. It was her, it was her application or her thoughts about this that led me to find its usefulness in this. So credit to you, Kay, for that. We all stand on each other's shoulders at different times.
Definitely, and Kay has been on the show, so there we discussed her happy brain model years ago. But she was on the show.
Oh.
Kay is a friend of the show.
She'll be with me in Teaching Excellence as well, which is lovely. So let's just look now. Let's just take a really simple example so people can see how these 6 levels can, my very simple application of this. So can we have a look at the next slide? And now we're turning it upside down. It's become a triangle. Oh no, it's not. So if we just think about this sentence, I can't do that there. There are 5 words in there. We have 6 levels, a bit difficult, but that's that's fine.
I can't do that there yet.
Well, you could yet, maybe yes. Where people put the emphasis on that very simple sentence signposts you to where to make the change, or where possibly the intervention is. So very simply, we'll just repeat the sentence and listen for the emphasis. So if I say, I can't do that here, or can't do that there, the emphasis is on the I, which indicates that that's likely to be identity. I can't. Oh, I'm sorry. I just got distracted. We're in the middle of a most amazing thunderstorm here at the moment. It's like we've had no rain for 4 months, and it's just making it up for it. So if you can't hear me over the sound of the weather, that's why. So the next emphasis might be on the can't. I can't do that there. So that implies capability, because it's can or cannot. So that would mean that good old teachers come into their own here. I can't do that there implies behavior. I'm not doing the behavior. I can't do that implies what? I
have no clue. It could imply everything. It could imply that the Russians invaded.
It's the thing that's getting the emphasis. So in this case, if it's I can't do the reading, I can't read there. Right. So it's reading. So it's about the worthwhileness of the activity. So that's about the belief in its value.
I don't get that at all.
Okay, well, you don't get that.
I can go along with I and I can't and do, and there is probably the environment, if I have to take a wild guess.
Yeah, so I can't do that there. I can't do that there. I can't do that here is something to do with environment.
But that as being beliefs and values is... I find
it's about whether it's about that thing about thinking about your nephew. The emphasis is when you said what he said to me, you said read. I don't do reading. Right?
I don't do that.
I don't do that. Right? So that's the activity. It's about what he thinks about the activity. So that's about the belief.
If he pronounces the word that with a lot of disgust in his
because it's useless, it's worthless, it's of no value. So he's implying it's what he feels and thinks and believes about that activity reading. That's.
I fear that if we enter the tone of voice as being a disgusting tone of voice, I fear that then the whole sentence falls apart, because then you can say it for with every the I, and then the disgusted way, and then
you can exactly, but it's to do with just listening. Again, it's never going to be perfect. It's an indicator. It's a ladder. So if you put the next slide up, you should kind of, oh no, and so that's just that's what we're trying to turn it into. I can do this here. So then if we we look at it like this, now this is upside down. I think we want the next one, actually, the last one. Okay, so then we get some implication, some idea about what type of question to ask next. So if they're not doing it there, they're not doing it here, there, whatever, something in the environment, then where or when would you do it, or could you do it? So there's an environmental exploration. If it's what I can't do, what is it you can't do? Behavioral. If it's I can't, it's how can't you do it? It's capability. This is the wrong way around. Never mind. Beliefs and values. We have the issue about beliefs and values, and then we have who. So we can look at a problem that somebody's having and see where we want to start. Not where we stop. We might stop with a swish. We might stop with something else, but where we're going to start. And I think one of the things that's become really noticeable for me, which I think is quite a fun thing to do, is if you look at people's professions, they will have a particular place they like to work. So I don't know where coaches would go, but probably not to capabilities, probably more to do with either behaviors or beliefs, I would think.
I don't know. I find that this so now as soon as we turn it into a pyramid.
Oh well, take the pyramid off now, Jos. So I don't want to hypnotize you into a bad state. We don't need it anymore.
Okay. Oh, I want it. I want, because I think that this is a good example of. So I agree. If I look at the work of Owen Fitzpatrick, who is a great teacher of public speaking. He has also a list of, like, I think 5, I forgot them, I can look them up in his manual, but he has like 5 things that you should take into account in your story.
Yeah, in the hero's tale, yes,
yeah. So I can understand the need for having a short list of things to think about. Mm-hmm. If you work with people, you should think about identity, I think, but then, maybe I'm just much more of, I say, changing people's brains in a very direct way. So for me, it's, and I absolutely agree with you that I am much more into efficiency than you are. I'm just looking, how can I change this person as quickly as possible?
Well, yeah, but also I think there's another thing here, Jos, going on, is that often I'm changing people to change people. So one of the things about, so it's not, I'm not necessarily making a direct change with people. I'm not making them change well, I am, but it's not about them. So if I'm working with teachers, it's not really about them. It's about the people they're going to be working with.
Yes, but I train a lot of people who become a coach. So that would be the same
thing. Well, yes,
thing.
That's right. Yeah, but so
in my experience, so the exploratory stuff is perfectly fine. I'm nothing against it, but it is much better to start with a very efficient process, which is standardized and is just checking to see whether that works. And if it doesn't work, then you go into exploratory stuff. But if it does work, then you're perfectly fine. So let me give another example. It's a bit tricky to give this example because it's still a current client of mine. But this was a 12 or 13-year-old girl, and she is going to middle school for the first time. And she has been diagnosed, I know there was an official term for it, with the inability to speak. She did not want to speak. She did not speak.
Selective muteness.
Something like that.
That's what they call it, the diagnosis.
It was a Latin name. So it was some psychiatrist who had come up and labeled it to her. And I just did my basic stuff. So I said, okay, so I look, okay, we want to have desired behavior. What's the desired behavior? Desired behavior is talking. Okay, and she went to the new school for the first time. It's always very scary, or not scary, but I say anxious. How's it going to be? And so we said, okay, and I said, how much do you want to speak? 1 minute, 2 minutes? So she came up with 2 minutes. She wanted to force herself to speak for 2 minutes. So now I had the goal, and now we had to find the strategy. So I said, okay, let's work. I told her spinning feelings. So I said, yeah, it's much better to talk when you feel good. We're going to black and rewind all the horrible. He had 3 years of horrible stuff happened on the prep school, I think it's in English. And so we re-neutralized that. Then we did the preparation for the future, that she saw herself relax and speak a lot on the first day of school. And we stopped inner worrying. And then we did a little bit of exploratory work, because I thought, I don't understand too much about it. And my question was, did you do plays on school? Because normally in prep school, we do a lot of plays. And in fact, she did. And it was for her, it's no problem to speak if it's a play. So I said, oh, I understand the problem. Nobody gave you the script. Her problem was she did not have a script. And so I gave her a script, and I got feedback from the parents. They were they were elated, because she talked and talked for the whole day on school on the first day. Why? Because she said, well, I know, I now feel good, and I am capable of, and I have a script, so I know what to say. And now it worked perfectly. So it didn't turn out to be any psychiatric disease at all. It was just the lack of having a script and feeling better because of that.
Good.
Yes.
So I don't see there's no conflict in this for me at all.
No. That's the whole point. The whole point is there's no conflict. But the question then becomes, if there's no conflict, why would you do it like this?
Well, because it's just, it enables people. So you're talking. It's context, Jos. It's context. Yes. So you've got a situation there where somebody comes in and they've got a straightforward issue like selective muteness. Right. Now the first thing you said to me gave me a really big clue, because you said she wanted to speak.
Yes.
Right. She wanted to.
Definitely.
So already you've already bypassed this step, because she's come in the door wanting to be able to speak. Now, what if she hadn't wanted to be able to speak?
I would still do the same. Okay, I would figure out something that she did want to do, because my job is figuring out what people want to do and then enabling them to do it. So we do have to find something. But if she would say, well, I can speak, but I just don't do it because I don't want to. I want to be silent. I want to be a monk, or I think I actually literally said to her that maybe you are a monk. We have these monks that take a vow of silence. And it's very difficult for them, and they meditate for years before they can do that. Maybe you're a brilliant, spiritual being who has already taken a vow of silence. If she would have said yes, indeed, well, of course that can't. If she would nodded yes, indeed, she can't speak, then of course, then that would solve the issue. Because but that's also, of course, a trick from Milton.
The point that I'm saying is that the point here is you would have done, of course, if she'd come in with a different thing, you would have done something different. But that's the whole point here. Is it that
no, the point is I would not have done different. So if she that's the okay, that's exactly the reason why I think this is wrong. Again, I don't mind people using it. I mind people being hypnotized by it. So say that she would have been that she wanted to be the monk who took a vow of silence to be the spiritual silent being. Then I would teach her how to do that, feeling good. So I still do spinning feelings, still would remove all the bad stuff from the past, still project a new future, but in a future where she would be floating along, feeling great and being silent. So we would do exactly the same procedure, with the difference that to work toward a different goal.
But I just think that's
exactly the reason why I don't want this stuff.
But like then you've got, that's the same as like the girl who decides she doesn't want to read, so you just give her another way of not reading. I wouldn't do that at all, because I would be wanting to find out. I would be wanting to find what would motivate her, what would make her want to speak. Because
definitely.
going
So
through
of
life
course,
if she wanted to go and join a monastery, then that's absolutely fine. But actually going through your normal life as a teenager, as a 13-year-old, deciding that you're not going to speak isn't a great thing to do.
no, I understand.
Yeah,
It's an extreme example.
So okay, but it's a good point. It makes a point.
I had a client who had, in hindsight, had hysterical epileptica. So she would get into fits and got extreme headaches and pain and stuff like that. She would end up in hospital, and they could not find anything because there was nothing wrong. It was complete hysteria. And she was lying in a dark room for 3 years. And after 3 years, she started to feel a little bit anxious and depressed. My brain was going, it took you 3 years to get there. I would do that in like 3 hours. But in her case, her assignment to me was, you have to help me overcome the anxiety and the depression so that I can feel good by laying here. Now, of course, I refuse to do that. That's obvious. That would not be a great thing.
So there are times when you need to use a different scaffolding to move, to put something else in place before you do the next piece of change work. And I think that's
still did the same procedure. In her case, as soon as I moved my body, she started to complain about some of those epileptic attacks coming up. So I had to do it completely verbally without moving my body. It was quite a challenge for me. But I still do the same procedure. I just put in a different goal. I just sneaked in. So I decided for her to say, well, okay, we're going to help you with anxiety and depression, and without saying it, but thinking it, and I'm going to get you out of the bed and moving again and living again. So I just added that to the goal of the intervention.
So what I was trying to say before you decided to do before you decided to tell us those two stories was that sometimes we're helping people, or in my work, I'm helping people one step removed. So one of the things that I want to know is where somebody has been trying to help. So if I have a parent who comes to me, or another teacher who comes to me, or a vicar who comes to me and says, I've been trying to help this person, but it's not working. One of the things that logical levels will enable us to do is to be able to get that person to see that maybe they're making an intervention in the wrong way. So then that's why I just think sometimes looking at it from a profession's point of view is quite interesting. And you've given me quite a nice idea for another slide, which might do for teaching excellence. So, if we're talking, it's quite likely if you're talking to a vicar or a priest, that their main area of concern is your whole spiritual well-being, your higher purpose. So they're likely to be focused on your soul and, and redeeming your soul. So they may not be that interested in whether or not you've got, food on your table or whatever, although that's a vast generalization and probably isn't true because they do a lot of work with the poor and everything else. But, they may not be paying attention to something else. So, where people are interested in, where we've got social workers, for example, tend to focus their intervention around, firstly, environment. Definitely. So they're looking at a child's environment. Have they got this, that, and the other? They make interventions in the home, if you like. Exactly. And also often about capabilities. So they come in at capability. So, well, this father isn't a capable mother. They need to learn the skills of being a good mother or a good father or whatever.
Yes. So I completely agree with that, and it's the same for me, but not for teachers, but for coaches. So they do have the tendency to come up with all kinds of different angles that they approach a problem to. In fact, when we do I have a program called the official certification program for the licensed NLP coach certificate, if people want to do that. And then we have 2 days where we run through all kinds of cases, and you can see, despite my best efforts to get them to be most efficient and always use the same model, that they still wander off and go and do stupid things, and then that fails. And then I can point out, let's go back to the original structure or the original protocol. Let's run that. And that's why I completely agree with you. That's also in my work. People do that constantly. And my job is telling them, stop doing this. Stop trying to come from this angle, and just look at the actual desired behaviors and figure out how you get people to do desired behaviors. And then we're done. And of course, that includes internal behaviors like feeling good, making right imagery about yourself. And and I think about 50% of the time it solves everything. And in the other 40%, 10% can't be fixed, or at least I can't be fixed them. But the other 40%, we need to do exploratory work, and then this model of this scaffolding. Now I'm making mistakes. The scaffolding is perfectly fine to see.
Yeah, I think the difference is that you see, you have a very because you're into efficiency. Because you can solve 50% of your problems by doing exactly the same thing every time. Yes. Then that's what you do to get those out of the way. But you see, as a type 7, I just find that really boring. So I wouldn't want to spend my time doing that. I'd rather go like, oh, well, how can we do this? Is there a way we can do this? So
definitely. But so I do understand that, and and of course I also have to train people who are more like you than they're like me.
Yeah, so if you sit me saying I have to do the same thing every time with everybody to get the 50% out of the way, I'd be going, no, I don't like this model. I'm going to go learn somebody else's coaching model.
I know. So I always say, you don't have to do it in my way. But if you and of course I train people to work on the basis of no cure, no pay. So as soon as the positive consequences of being paid is actually linked to the efficiency of what you do, you should see that even people like you suddenly become true believers in having a very efficient process that actually gets results.
Absolutely. But let's lose this picture. I've been asking you before.
I wanted to use it.
That's better. We just need to finish because it's now 1 o'clock and we need to finish. And I don't want to finish with a triangle with lions on. It's not the prettiest picture. It's just a scaffold. Good. But it's a useful scaffold.
Yes.
At times. At least we agree on that.
No, I don't think.
Oh no,
I think it's a scaffold. I think I agree that some people can use it, but I think there are at least the ABC model is a better model. It's a model, for instance. It's scientifically validated, so you're actually working with something that is proven to work, not just have anecdotes that it works. And then there's the 30-year plan. So if you look at the 30-year plan, then you look at how does my life look in 30 years. So you have the environment. What's the environment that I am in? You have behaviors, what am I doing in 30 years? What am I capable of? I think capabilities are still behaviors. There's no difference. And how do I see myself feeling good and having a good mental image of myself and everything. So everything you want from the logical levels is much better incorporated in your work through the 30-year plan.
Yeah, but I don't use a 30-year plan.
I know, but I'm promoting it.
So I do it differently. Horses to courses.
And you're perfectly perfectly good to do differently. So if you want to.
Well, I will be able to carry on this discussion because I'll be in Amsterdam in a week on Friday.
Yes, you will. Actually, we'll do Saturday and Sunday.
We're doing Saturday and Sunday. Yes, if anybody wants to come and join us, that would be marvelous.
Definitely, there's still room.
So I will. So I was going to say, Joost. So because we're prepping and planning for Amsterdam, I think I'm going to. I'm busy next week. So unless we've got something that we haven't got. I think we'll miss next week because it will give me. I need to get some other things prepped and sorted because I've got to condense my 5 days into 3 days.
I'm very happy that I can get 1 hour of your time every week. But I also bribed you by saying if there's for any reason that you don't have the time for this 1 hour, then we'll skip it. So we'll skip the 13th. That means that the next live stream will be Tuesday, September the 20th, 1 p.m. Central European Standard Time. And we'll come up with a topic. I don't know the topic right away, but
I think probably something will emerge on the weekend.
Definitely.
We'll ask the group.
Thank you very much. It was a delight. We'll talk some more next weekend during the training programs, and of course I'll also take you to dinner so we can discuss it even.
It's very important. Very important.
We never ever discuss NLP during our dinners, I think.
I look forward to it, Joost. It'd be great to be in the same space, human space again, rather than cyberspace. Take care then. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.